So let's talk about a 50 to 200 yard zero and why we use that, at least why I use that and why I recommend it for you as a general purpose rifleman in a realistic environment. As I said before, this is a 50 to 200 yard zero for a general purpose rifle that I'm going to be, if I were to be patrolling in the woods or just expecting some kind of a gunfight, this is what I'm going to be using. So I'll have a little visual representation here to kind of help you guys understand what the bullet is doing and why we're zeroing and what a zero is and all that stuff. So let's talk about some definitions here. So 50 to 200 yard zero. Here is my really detailed AR. We're going to talk about a gun target line, line of sight, trajectory, max ordnance, and danger space, and what all that is. So gun target line is exactly what that is. From the gun to the target, and then this imaginary line that going straight out, okay? Now, we have our line of sight from what my eyeball sees through the optic to the target, and that parallels the gun target line as well. So now we have our trajectory, and this is what our bullet is going to do once it's shot. So let's just say our gun target line is completely parallel with our optic and it's being shot straight out. What that bullet's going to do, that trajectory, that flight path, is going to come so far out, and then gravity will take effect and then fall and hit the earth. And then that's what a bullet's going to do. So to kind of compensate for that, you're going to have to angle the barrel at a higher trajectory to get that bullet out to the intended target. So how you do that is with the optic, we'll have your dot point in a downward direction, which would raise the barrel up. So now we want to do a 50 to 200 yard zero. So from our gun target line where the bullet's going to get shot, that trajectory now is going to look like this. It's going to be shot, it's going to fly out, oops, excuse that. It's going to reach the maximum height or the maximum ordnance of that flight path and begin to fall to earth where it intersects with that line of sight and then falls into earth because gravity's going to do its thing, right? So we have 2 points of intersecting right here. So we have right here and right here. So where this trajectory intersects with our line of sight is 50 yards. And this is true for M855 62 grain green tip government bullets. I use that round because it's the most common. You can buy it anywhere, and it was it's easily already programmed in ballistic calculators or a Kestrel. So as I was saying, it intersects at 50 and intersects again at 200, and it's true for this bullet only. It varies a little bit with different bullets, different weights, different velocities, but for this is what it is. All right, so now we're going to talk about the max ordnance here. So from the height of the max ordnance to the gun target line is 4.1 inches, and I got that from the ballistic calculator. So 4.1 inches. From that gun target line to the max ord is a danger space, and I'll talk about that, what that is here in a second. So we have our intersecting lines from the trajectory to the gun target line, and that's what we're going to zero our target at. So 50 yards is where I'm going to put my paper target to zero at because it intersected my line of sight. So where I put my red dot is where my bullets are going to hit. Point of aim, point of impact. And it's going to do it again out at distance at 200 yards. Where I put that red dot, the bullets are going to hit point of aim, point of impact. Boom, right there, 200 yards to the target. Okay? Target. So that's why we use a 200 yard zero. So now let's talk about what danger space is. So I put in into this measuring tape here, 4.1 inches. And if I were to shoot a target that looks like me at a distance where I'm not running, I'm just a stationary target, and the shooter has a good solid base and he's shooting at me and there's no obstacles in the way. If I were to take a headshot, if I were to aim at the bottom part of the top part of my chin, right here, the bullet's going to travel from the barrel and have a trajectory to fly at its max ord at 4.1 inches and begin to fall back to earth out at 200 yards and hit me back in the chin. So these are my 2 0 points, 50 and 200 yards, with a max ord of 4.1 inches at about 137 yards, I think, from what I remember from the Kestrel. It's about 2/3 the distance, the total distance from the target to, from the barrel to the target. So that's called the danger space. Different zeros, different bullets, different velocities have higher danger space. This is what we use because it's pretty minimal of that flight path, and you don't have to account for holdovers. Now, if I were to shoot beyond, let's say 250 yards, that bullet's going to continue falling, right? So let's just say now I move back to 250 yards. That bullet's still going to fall. It's still going to hit me. It'll probably hit me mid-chest. Now the bullet's falling faster because gravity's taking effect. It's going to hit me mid-chest, right? That's good. But if all I'm exposing is my head out at 250 yards, it's going to miss. So that's where you have to now know what the distance is and hold over the target. I might have to put the dot up here a little higher to hit me in the same spot in the face at that distance to get your hit. So that's what a holdover is essentially. So while we use 200 yards, I mean, it's not a far distance by any means, but 200 yards is kind of a happy medium distance to where you're taking into account realistic environment like obstacles. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we have lots of hills, we have lots of mountains, we have lots of trees, we have lots of vegetation. Things are just getting in the way. You get lucky if you're happen to have to get into a fight. If you live in a rural cabin out there, you might have a clearance of where you are from your property line to the wood line. But if you're in the wood line, you get lucky if you can see 50 to 75 yards if you've got kind of a cut through of clear in the vegetation. So that's kind of why 200 yards is a lot now when you factor in environmental issues or environmental obstacles. Not too often you're going to get in a gunfight in a big open field like you did in a Civil War or like you did in the Revolutionary War. It's like, this is the planned area we're going to fight. Like, nobody does that anymore. It's more like ambushes. If you're planning, you kind of dictate where the fight's going to be, but if you're just patrolling on your own, you're going to react, and it's not going to be to your benefit. It's going to be to the enemy's benefit. All you might get is 50 to 75 yards, because that might just be it in the middle of a fight. Take Vietnam, for example. Those fights are pretty damn close because of thick vegetation. Even in an urban environment, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to shoot 200 straight yards unless it's like down a street or a road. And even then, if you find a threat in that alleyway of a street or something, all they're going to do is, if you hit them, great, but better be a good shot where you drop them, because if you miss or you don't do a lethal hit, all they're going to do is run laterally 10 yards out of the way, and now they're gone. They're behind a house, behind a car, and now you've pissed them off, and now they're ready for you. So now you got to close that distance, limit that threat, or break contact to get out of there, because now they're coming for you and they know where you are. So that's why I chose a 200-yard zero. It's realistic as far as distance and environmental issues and obstacles and stuff like that. So I hope that helps clarify why we choose a 200-yard zero. I know that guys want to go further than that, but just think about what's realistic and what your expectations are and the probability of distance if you were to get into a gunfight. You know, it might be different if you live in the Midwest. You might get that distance, so you can extend your zero a little bit further. But you also got to take into account the higher trajectory, higher max ord. You might have to factor in that as well.